Hello there, and welcome to the Harvest Report. On today's episode, a report from a pastor in Uganda. What life on the missions field actually looks like, and a conversation with Pastor Terry Anglea of Bourbonnais, Illinois. I want to begin today by reading a portion of a report from Pastor Alimanya James in Bunyangambi, Uganda. This is a fourth quarter report from 2025. Greetings. Praise the Lord for all He has done. We thank God for bringing us thus far, especially when we see so many loved ones departed in the past year. In November, we experienced heavy rain and wind that damaged the wall of our church. However, God provided the support to fix this damage through Gospel Light Baptist Church in Kampala. Through your support, the gospel was taken to one secondary school and two primary schools, and 23 students were saved. These students live far from the church, but they usually visit us on Sundays. We are thankful for this growth and the improvement that has been seen at the midweek service this quarter. During soul winning last month, I met Stephen, who was at a saloon, and I told him about the good news of our Lord Jesus. He promised me to come to church, and he fulfilled his promise. Praise God, I was able to lead him to Christ. Please pray for him to be faithful and to stand firm in his faith. May God continue to use my brother Charles and I to reach more souls in different places with the gospel. Please pray for God to provide a means of transportation, as there are several schools requesting us to come and share God's word. These places are so far away from us, we need God to provide the means. Please pray for God's provision for the completion of the church building, peaceful elections, and God's wisdom and protection. Thank you for your prayers and support. May God bless you in the new year. Yours faithfully, Pastor Alimanya James. The statistical portion of his report shows an average Sunday morning attendance of around 10, an average Sunday evening attendance of around 15, and a midweek service attendance of around 10 as well. These numbers represent the number of adults who were present at these services, as they do not count children in their attendance numbers. Throughout the quarter, the pastor was able to see 40 souls saved through soul winning and outreach. He saw 3 saved in church and did not have any baptisms this quarter. When we read a report like that, it can be very easy to focus on the numbers: 10, 15, 40, 3, 0 baptisms. But behind every number is a context most of us have never lived. Behind every statistic is a daily life that looks very different from ours. When Pastor Alimanya speaks about taking the gospel to schools that are so far away from us, that distance is not measured by highway miles and a full tank of gas. Most people in his region do not own cars or motorcycles. Transportation is inconsistent and often complicated. Getting to a school may involve walking, waiting, transferring, and hoping that what is supposed to arrive actually does. When he asks for prayer for transportation, that is not a convenience request. It is a ministry multiplier. Without reliable transportation, invitations to preach in distant schools may simply go unanswered, not because of unwillingness, but because of physical limitation. And that's only one layer. In many underdeveloped regions where our missionaries serve, daily life itself consumes enormous time and energy. Water is not always readily available from a tap in the kitchen. Water must often be carried from wells, rivers, or purchased from vendors. That water is used for cooking, for cleaning, and for drinking. Time that we might spend in study, in visitation, or in planning is sometimes spent simply ensuring that a household has what it needs to function. Take cooking, for instance. Cooking is often done over charcoal. Meal preparation is not a 30-minute task. It can take hours. The rhythm of the day is slower, not because there is less to do, but because basic necessities require more effort. Lighting is limited. In rural areas, when the sun sets, darkness comes quickly and completely. With crime present in many regions, evening travel is risky. In my recent trip to Nigeria, while we were driving on the local federal highway from the airport to the place where I was staying, we witnessed a car actively being robbed. This is a story that plays out across much of the developing world. That means that meetings, discipleship, and outreach must often be confined to daylight hours. The window for ministry is narrower than we might imagine. Simple administrative tasks can be exhausting. A trip to the bank or to a government office may involve standing in line for hours. And sometimes, when you finally reach the front, you are told the office is closed for the day without explanation. You get to return tomorrow and begin the process once more. These are not dramatic persecutions. They are not headlines. They are slow grinding realities of life in underdeveloped context. And they shape ministry. Now add to that cultural layers. In some communities, you cannot simply walk in and begin preaching. There are customs. There are hierarchies. There are elders whose approval must be sought. There may be a village chief whose permission determines whether anyone will even listen to you. Without that approval, doors remain closed, not by law, but by tradition. When we consider all of this, Pastor Alemania's report reads differently. The hours he spent soul winning did not happen in a climate-controlled vehicle. It happened on foot. It means he is out in the heat and the dust. It happens after carrying water and preparing meals and navigating transportation. 40 souls saved through outreach are not the result of convenience. They are the fruit of perseverance. The damaged church wall from heavy rain is not just a maintenance issue. It is a reminder that infrastructure is fragile. Buildings are not easily replaced. Repairs are not quickly arranged. This is the weight that many missionaries carry. Furthermore, during the rainy season which he has just come through, oftentimes the roads become so impassable from the mud that people simply are not able to attend church, that it is impossible to travel far beyond the adjacent structures to your place of residence. This is the weight that many missionaries and church planners carry. Not just the spiritual burden of preaching Christ, but the physical and logistical burden of daily life. And yet, they continue. They labor because they believe the gospel is worth it. So, how should we respond? First of all, we must pray differently. We do not pray vague prayers. We must pray specifically. Pray for transportation. Pray for physical stamina. Pray for protection while traveling. Pray for wisdom in navigating local customs. Pray for favor with leaders and officials. Pray for perseverance in slow days and encouragement in small victories. Pray for safety from disease and injury. Second, we must become better senders. Being a sender is not passive. It means financial faithfulness, yes, but it also means communication, encouragement, and advocacy. It means reading reports carefully instead of skimming them. It means understanding that the missionary is not living in an American framework with an American schedule. It means resisting the temptation to measure their fruit by our convenience standards. We must remember that a church of 10 in rural Uganda may represent enormous sacrifice and enormous faithfulness. Now, as we think about sending and supporting missionaries, there is another layer to this conversation. Where do missionaries come from? They come from churches. They come from homes. They come from pastors who preach the biblical mandate for missions clearly and consistently. They come from congregations that believe the Great Commission is not optional. That brings us to today's conversation with Pastor Terry Anglea of Faith Baptist Church in Bourbonnais, Illinois. Pastor Anglea has 2 children serving on the mission field and 4 others serving in churches across the United States. That did not happen by accident. That is the fruit of conviction lived out over decades. In our interview, we talk about the biblical mandate for missions, about how to nurture a missions-minded church, about what life as a missionary really looks like, and about the responsibility every Christian has to be involved in the work of evangelism. If missionaries are going to endure the burden of places like Bourbonnais, they need churches that understand what they are enduring. They need pastors who preach missions not as a side emphasis, but as a central component of obedience to Christ. They need congregations that do not merely admire missionaries, but actively participate in praying and sending. As we move into this interview, I want you to think about 2 questions. First, how am I praying for those who are living and ministering in places that demand more just to survive, let alone to preach? And second, what kind of culture am I cultivating in my church and in my home? One that celebrates missions occasionally, or one that consistently produces and supports those that are willing to go? Let's turn now to our conversation with Pastor Terry Anglea.
Well, I'm excited to be here with Pastor Terry Anglea today of Faith Baptist Church in Bourbonnais, Illinois. And you said you've been pastor for 35 years now here, right?
Right, yes, sir.
Okay, and then
35.
between here and your ministry in Iowa, total of 45 years in ministry, correct?
Yes, that's right.
That's amazing. And I know I've been blessed personally by your ministry as the Lord has used you to preach in a great many places around the country and even around the world. To start off today, if you could share with us a little of how the Lord began to work in your heart about the concept of missions as a whole, how it came to be that now you're in a place where you're in a church that's well known for sending out missionaries, for supporting missionaries. Where did that desire to be involved in the process of missions become a part of who you are?
Probably back in the early 90s. I came here in 1990, and through my Bible college years and the years in Iowa, we supported missionaries at the church in Iowa. We didn't use Faith Promise. They were just supported out of the general fund, which is fine. I know preachers that do that.
Right.
So when I came here, of course, the church was in decline, and they had initiated Faith Promise, I think, around in the early 80s.
Okay.
And I can't recall, Brother Reed, exactly how many missionaries we supported when I arrived, but I know that we were making up the missions commitment every month out of general fund, and there wasn't a plenty in general fund either, and we had to refinance the mortgage payment. And remember in the early days, sitting on Monday with the secretary saying we're going to pay these bills and hold these bills, and trying to get it all done. Thankfully, God blessed, we never, we always made the missionary support, but we always were making it up to the tune of, I don't know, hundreds of dollars from the general fund. And after about, 2.5 years of that, the beginning, if you will, of where did missions giving really is almost, I said the word carnal, maybe it's practical, but I got tired of it. Somebody gave me a book by John Halsey. He was with BIMI on Faith Promise giving. And I read it, and I knew that Jim Vineyard, at that time, his church and college were just gung-ho for missions and using Faith Promise. So I called him. I'd known him from Bible college days. I called him, and he agreed to come. And I think he came 13 years in a row. And of course, he had missionaries out of his own family at that time. And
Right.
the church was just, turning out missionaries. And the college emphasis was on missions. And God used him. God used him here. I forget, was it 13 or 15 families we were able to take on after the first missions conference.
Amen. Wow.
And every year after that, and every year since 92 or 3, I can't remember exactly when, we've added missionaries, to our missions budget, and so that's really what kind of kicked it off, if you will, got me. How can we do this? I know it's right to support missionaries. We're falling behind every month. And a part of that was just due to the fall off, the attendance.
Right.
People had left. Kind of a difficult spirit. And, we were, like I said, taking in some money, but not enough. And I didn't want to start dropping missionaries.
Right.
I had enough belief in missions to know that, that's the lifeblood of the church.
Sure.
But that philosophy wasn't fully developed at that point in time until that began to happen.
Yeah, and that's also, it doesn't always have to be a Damascus Road shining light moment experience that shapes the philosophy. It can be very practical, the way in which the Lord works. And you mentioned, some of the struggles you had, maybe orienting people's hearts correctly when you came here. Do you believe that placing an emphasis on missions helped accomplish that? And if so, why do you think that is?
Well, I think first of all, it's just obedience to the Word of God. I think Faith Baptist Church has to personally embrace getting the gospel to the world. I don't think that was left to churches corporately. I think I have to look at it as our personal obligation. Thank God there are other churches to help pitch in and get the job done.
Right.
But we have to look at it as our own responsibility. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to fulfill it? The missionary is not a burden. He's a blessing, because I can't have a voice in Brazil without the Putnam family. I can't have a voice in, Uganda without the Stensis brothers. I say we as a church.
Right.
Okay, you understand that. We can't have a voice in Belarus without the Schrock family. I mean, it can't happen. So we need them as much as they need us. They come to us needing our support. No, we need you. It's almost like a who needs who.
Sure.
I remember when God sent the prophet Elijah to the widow at Zarephath. You could ask that question there. Who needed who? Elijah needed her, but she needed Elijah.
Right.
Because after she gave the cake to him, the barrel of meal and the cruse of oil didn't fail.
Right.
So, putting him first, putting God first for that woman paid off. And, putting God first in this responsibility of getting our voice, if you will, through missionaries to the world so that they can preach the gospel. People can hear and be saved. It's just our obligation. And I think people bought into that. And some other things I think helped build into it as well. But I think that was a major one. And then that we just really started making, I think the most important days on our church calendar are missions conference days. We have revivals, and we host the Revival Fires Conference. That's a great conference. But I tell our people all the time the most important days on our calendar are missions conference.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I think the church has bought into it, believes that with all my heart. So.
And I love the perspective you gave there, that missions is not a zero-sum game. It's not that the church has to suffer so that missions can go forward, or missions has to suffer so the church can have more. No, it is everyone wins when the church gets involved.
I remember Pat Creed. He was a BIMI field director. He had been in the Caribbean as a missionary and pastored a church after that in the States. And his son Mike, I think, is still the pastor out there now in Maryland, I believe.
Okay.
But when he turned the church over to his son, Brother Creed drove Mike around the property and the campus, the buildings, and he just put the car in park and he said, "Son, everything you see here is because of missions."
Wow.
And I know from, the missionaries that have gone out of our own family and the missionaries that have gone out of our church, their testimony is that the strongest churches they visited were missions-minded churches. Missions-minded churches. Didn't matter the size. Could have been in rural area where there was 100, 125 people.
Right.
But it was a strong church because they had an emphasis on missions, getting the gospel to the world. The last command Christ ever gave, it left the church when he went to heaven, was get the gospel to the world. So
Yes, sir.
I think that's heartfelt. I don't know if we're quite where Capital City is. I said to Pastor Thompson, I said, "Man, mission, you got a missions-minded church." He said, "Brother Angel, it's in our DNA." And I would love for that to be said about our church here, that it's in our DNA. And so, obviously, it's a win-win.
Yes, sir.
We need them, they need us.
Amen. Now, with a very practical kind of entry into missions, that philosophy, if you will, was there a specific moment when you had the opportunity to maybe take a missions trip, or you interacted with a specific missionary? Was there a moment when it went from, kind of an intangible, spiritual, this is what we're involved in, but when did it become concrete, if you will, for you?
Okay, so let's go. And again, I can't date this, but most of the preaching, I'm speaking personally now, most of the preaching on missions giving that I had heard came out of 2 Corinthians 8 and 9.
Right.
And no doubt, those chapters are probably the classic chapters in the Bible concerning what I call grace giving. I don't know what other people call grace. Tithing to me is not grace giving. Grace giving goes beyond 10%. So I'm not involved in grace giving until I get 10 point something, right? That point something becomes the grace part of giving. And I believe those chapters are specific about grace giving. But the offering that was being received in the churches that Paul started was an offering for the persecuted Jewish people in Jerusalem.
Right.
And he made that at the end of the book of Romans, chapter 15, I think it is. Paul basically said, "Hey, you Gentiles, you've benefited from the Jews spiritually. It's right for them to benefit from you materially." And he wrote the church at Corinth. He used the churches in Macedonia as an example of giving special offerings for the persecuted saints in Jerusalem. I believe, and this leads back maybe to a former question. I believe when people see something, when people can see something in black and white in that book that they can sink their teeth in, then it becomes real to them.
Right.
All right. So in the back of my mind, I'm just wondering, is there Bible proof that churches gave money so that the gospel could be preached in other places? So that's just kind of lodged in the back of my mind. I've preached missions messages out of 2 Corinthians 8:9. I think you can make application for that out of 2 Corinthians 8:9. But I'm looking for that text, that passage. No, this was not persecuted saints. This was to preach the gospel.
Right.
And reading my devotions one day in Philippians chapter 4, it all opened up to me. And I began to cross-reference with Paul's second missionary journey and him talking to the church at Philippi about, "You sent once and again to my need in Thessalonica. You sent to me when I left Macedonia to go into Achaia, when I departed from Macedonia." And then reading back in 2 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, or 2nd, which I forget which one now, 2nd, I think. First, when he talked about how that when he was in Corinth, the churches from Macedonia supplied his need. Mm-hmm. And in the back of my mind, I got that familiar verse, that great text in Philippians 4:19, "But my God shall supply all your need." And it all came together. The church supplied the missionaries' need. God promised to supply the church's need.
Wow.
And when I presented that to the people, I preached that same message probably 15 years in a row here at Faith Baptist, so that the new people who came in during the year could be brought up to speed as to this, folks. This didn't start in Toronto, Canada. With who was the preacher there? Forget his name right now, but J. Oswald Smith. Maybe that was it, something like that. But anyway, it didn't start in Greenville, South Carolina. It didn't start in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It didn't start in Hammond, Indiana, or Springfield, Missouri. Giving to missions started in the first century. Giving so that somebody could preach the gospel. The church at Philippi, I believe the church at Thessalonica, I believe the church at Berea, because he talked about the churches. He robbed other churches, plural. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so the idea of multiple churches supplying the same missionaries' need to preach the gospel, to me, it's clear as a bell from the Bible.
Yes, sir.
And so, you present that to, so now in my mind, I'm in. Wow. Okay, this is not an offering for a persecuted Jewish saint, which is okay. Mm-hmm. This is so the gospel can be preached. People can hear how to be saved. So churches can be started. That's what this offering is for. And when you show people that, I think when you show God's people in black and white and those in verse, you put it all together. Okay, I've had multiple people tell me, and I'm not tooting my own horn here. I'm just talking transparently with you. I preached that message And if if a pastor invites me to a missions conference, it's because he heard that message or heard about it.
Right.
And I've had people who came up after that message and said, I've been given to missions for years, but now I understand why. It's just, and it's not like I'm the only guy. I'm sure I know it's out there. You know, nothing's original with
Right.
us, right? So it's out there. I'd never heard it. I'd never heard it presented in that way. So that's when I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. That's when
Oh, that's great.
you know,
Sure.
that's when
And
I,
there are plenty of things that are kind of in the, if you will, penumbra of Scripture. We can, make the logical leap. Well, if we're supposed to do this, then this makes sense too. But when it goes from the penumbra to the pages itself, where you can see, here it is,
yeah.
black and white, do this.
I just don't think, I think any critical-minded, analytical-minded person could take those verses and dissect them, and they couldn't make it say anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one you can take to the bank.
And I have.
Right.
And we
Yes, sir.
supported missionaries with it. Thank
Amen.
God.
Amen. Now, as a pastor, moving a little bit back to the practical, if you will.
But yet you asked about a missionary. Did I meet a missionary or take a mission?
Yeah, if there was a specific kind of experience in that way, which went from more of a, if you will, kind of conceptual, I understand that, but added, kind of the sight to it.
Sure. Probably the primary example of that, or the primary one, would be Keith Harrison. I know you've interviewed him,
Yes,
actually, for this project. So I knew Brother Harrison. I knew of Brother Harrison. We were in Bible college together. He's a little younger than me. I knew of him. In fact, he came through Marion Avenue when I was there, and I think the church picked him up for support. But he was sent out of Faith Baptist. He was here before I was,
Right.
as an assistant pastor. And God called him to Argentina while he was here. And so Faith Baptist had sent him to Argentina prior to my coming. And I don't remember how long he had been on the field when I arrived here in 1990. I can't remember exactly when he left. But because of our prior acquaintance, and now I'm the pastor of the church that sent him out, his father-in-law, Judy's dad, Bob Pearson, had a ham radio. And he would patch me in on the phone with Keith many times, Brother Keith many times in Buenos Aires, and I could talk with him, and then of course they came for furlough and things, and he would always come here and
Right.
make this their base. So he invited me and Joyce. They invited us down. I'm thinking 1990, 6 or 7 or 8. He had a large conference, being there in the capital city, of Argentina. But it was not just Argentina; it was South America. BIMI missionaries, a lot of them, but there
Right.
were also BBF missionaries there. And, I think there was probably in the crowd 450 to 500 people.
Wow.
And we had a conference, but I preached in his church, first. And man, just I think that was I might have preached at Rick Martin's prior to Brother Harrison's. Went to the Philippines at that same time at
Sure.
when I preached at Brother Martin's conference. Man, seeing all those pastors, So, but just my personal relationship. I mean, Brother Martin and I are friends. We don't see or talk much, but we knew each other again from Marion Avenue days. But just my personal relationship with Brother Harrison, and seeing the church there in Argentina, the people, seeing the missionaries come with the people from their churches, now I'm looking at it, I'm seeing it. So that was a moment.
Yes, sir.
In time that, really, again, just kind of threw more fuel on the fire, if you will.
Right. It seems like you get some of those snapshot moments where it's like your eyes are opened,
Yeah.
and you now see the need, you see the field. It's there right in front of your eyes.
Which, I mean, how many pastors have said, missions trip will change your life?
Yeah, it's true.
It just does.
Yes, sir.
Things are so different here in America than around the world. Even modern countries, it's still
Right.
just a unique land.
And physical poverty touches you, but more so when you see beyond that to the spiritual poverty that so many countries have, and just the lack of hope.
I can remember when Joyce and I went to visit Ben and Ashley in Albertville, France, when they were in language school, driving through France, 2 little towns, no churches.
Right.
No churches. And that wasn't poverty. Mm-hmm. That was an industrialized nation, first world country, right? You know, nothing there.
Right.
You just wonder sometimes, who is going to knock on the door here. Mm-hmm. Makes you wonder.
Yes, sir. And there's so many more laborers that need to go. It's rare to hear anybody going to much of developed Europe anymore.
I know.
There's just nothing there. And so much of the world needs that light.
Yeah.
Pivoting kind of on to the practical side of sending laborers out to bring that light. As the pastor of Faith Baptist Church, as someone who kind of oversees, heads up the missions program here, if you will, do you have kind of a philosophy of missions that you have developed over the years, or a specific kind of, not necessarily a specific model of missions, but something you look for in a missions group, a missionary, a missions project that you believe that you have seen the Lord use to do his work around the world?
Yeah, well, at the very beginning when we started, I came up with the dreaded missionary questionnaire.
Right.
And tried to make it, sensible, reasonable. Kind of where we are when it comes to that, Brother Reed, is looking for missionaries who meet what we require of our Sunday school teachers.
Okay.
I'm not going to support a man because he came out of a specific college. Mm-hmm. Some colleges will cause me to be a little bit more cautious about what he believes, because obviously not all colleges turn out the same product, right?
Right.
But I want to know what the man. What do you believe? What do you believe about the English Bible? What do you believe about Calvinism? Mm-hmm. What do you believe about Pentecostalism? What do you believe about, personal separation from the world? What do you believe about ecclesiastical separation? So what does that man believe? Okay, doesn't matter his tag, his college degree, where he came, what camp he runs in. What do you believe? Because I've found really good guys in almost in all those different groups, if you want to call it them, call it that way. So, and what are his plans? Because I think Bible missions, again, back to that message, I think Bible missions is starting churches. I think that is the essence of Bible missions. Is it wrong for us to support, a printing ministry, a good college that needs a little help getting off the ground?
Right.
No, I don't, But the bulk, and I mean the greater percentage of the bulk of our support is church planners.
Yes, sir.
Guys that have either, and I know there's 2 different thought processes. Build a church, stay there. Train men to go out and start churches, and then maybe just start a church and the man himself move on. I don't find fault with either one of those, really. As long as the emphasis is church planning.
Right.
So secondary to church planning, I believe, is the Bible in their language,
right,
in their tongue, their dialect, whatever. So a ministry that's designed to print Scripture, and I think that's a vital. So if a man is called to that ministry and it's a viable Bible printing, ministry, I can go there too. But that church planning is the pinnacle.
Yes, sir.
In my mind. So, what is the candidate, for whatever better word you want to use? What does the candidate believe? Mm-hmm. Is his wife on board? And then is he? And this would be secondary. It seems like I have a goal. I don't know how I'll reach it before I have to turn the church over, but I would like to have a Faith Baptist voice, a Faith Baptist supported voice in every country that's open to missionaries.
Yes.
I don't know that we'll get there. So if I've got a guy, going to Mexico, and I've got a guy going to a country where we don't have a voice, I might lean toward that a little bit, having the guy, hey, let's check you out where you're going, because we don't have a voice there.
Right.
So I know that's kind of broad. It's not real specific.
Sure. Out of curiosity, kind of, I guess, bringing that into the very micro, has there been a specific character trait that you have seen that maybe is an indicator of long-term lasting on the field? And I don't know how you quantify success other than doing the Lord's will, but is there a specific, I've heard it uncharitably said by another pastor that pig-headedness was a great, just the stubborn refusal to quit was kind of a good indicator for him that he thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've put money behind candidates who were pig-headed, and I supported them for 4 years, and they never got off deputation. At what point is this the right path? Are you on the right path?
Right.
Okay. And I'm not saying they got to get out of deputation in 2.5 years, and I'm not going to. Sometimes it takes longer. I think personality doesn't. I mean, as Americans, I think sometimes our giving is more emotional than it is on purpose. Like
Right.
2 Corinthians 9 tells us, every man purposeth in his heart. And I know I'm talking to, global here, which you're about national pastors, and I believe in that. We'll get to that later. But I've seen American people respond to a tearful national pastor from wherever.
Right. Sure.
And
poverty can move the heart.
Poverty can move the heart.
Especially.
But and then this man comes in who was born in a particular mission field because his parents were missionaries. He's got the personality of a fire hydrant. And doesn't really move hearts. But he knows the language. He knows the culture. There's no culture shock. And I'm not sure it's always, I remember a missionary telling me one time, Brother Angel, it's not culture shock, it's culture devastation. when an American goes, especially to a third world country, right? So, but, his presentation, it was as stiff, it was as boring as a fire hydrant. And the money that came in reflected that. But I don't look at, I see this man knows the language. This man was trained. This man grew up reaching those people. There's no culture. It might be for his wife, but he's probably a decent investment.
Yes, sir.
And I am a softy for second and third generation missionaries. I just feel like, so what does the new missionary on the field face? Okay, he faces the language, he faces learning the culture, he faces adapting to maybe a lower standard of living.
Right.
Well, that guy's checked all those boxes. Now, if he's, he hasn't done anything, but if his heart's on fire, and I just, that catches my attention. And then if a missionary candidate who grew up on the field and his heart desires to go back and work in that field.
Yes, sir.
And not necessarily with his dad or with his brother, but you take the Johnson boys down in Brazil.
Sure.
I think I support 5 of them. And I don't know why I wouldn't take on another one.
Right.
They're not all bunched together. They're what a great group. So those are the kind of the things that maybe I'm not sure I'm answering your question exactly as you framed it, but
Sure. I think to distill it and make it super buzzwordy, it would be a holistic and spirit-led approach to evaluating candidates.
Yeah, I think it has to be. Yeah, that's part of it,
Right.
right? For sure. Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, you have to know what they believe or they say they
Of course.
believe. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And people change. And one of the good things about having a questionnaire is we keep it.
Right.
And if for some reason there's a change in direction, we can write them and say, hey, look, this is a copy of your questionnaire. This is what you believed. Have you changed your belief? So I know they're irritating. I get it. You know, I can remember Ben calling one time, and I don't know how many pages it was, and questions that just really.
You can get 16, 17 pages long. You know, who in the church has authority to baptize? Multiple choice, and none of the answers make sense. You know.
Yeah. So I simplify it.
Yes, sir.
You know, to some areas that I thought, like I said, I think Calvinism. You know, if you're Calvinistic in your doctrine.
Yeah, what are you doing anyway?
Yeah. If you are at all impressed with neo-evangelicalism, if you're impressed with Pentecostalism, then I don't want anything to do with you.
Yes, sir.
So, Baptist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Baptist.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Baptist distinctives. Not necessarily looking to make that church an American church, but in your theology, and I hate to even use that word, it's not even in the Bible, but your doctrine,
Yes, sir.
that you're straight.
Amen. You had a son, Ben, your oldest, who surrendered to the mission field and then went to Oklahoma Baptist College and trained there. Ended up going on deputation and then going to the country of Madagascar eventually. How did having a child who went into missions, who went through the whole deputation experience, language school, moving to a third world country that is very fractious and civil wars constantly, how did that inform your view of missions, missionaries, of the struggles they face that maybe pastors and Christians here in the United States don't see or don't fully understand?
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. There's a lot to talk about there. And actually, I have a daughter on the mission field too. In fact, that's interesting.
Right.
When
Yes, sir.
Ben left, it was
Right.
like, "Hey, son, I'm going to miss you," and it was tearful. O'Hare, Brother Reed, O'Hare is a place of tears. You cry for, joy when they come in, and you cry for sadness when they leave out. I thought it would get easier the older I got, but in fact, I think it gets harder. You got grandkids now,
Right.
But when Ben left, it was like, man, I'm going to miss you, buddy. Go do it, But when Isaiah took Cherith, the girl, the youngest daughter,
Right.
it was like, Isaiah, you better put her in the same place, and you better, it was like, you better take care of my kid, So,
Right.
but anyway, hey, the deputation process really wasn't. I mean, I didn't live it, but watching your child go through deputation, I thought was fairly, it is what it is. And Isaiah and Cherith had to deal with COVID and all the shutdown, but God was good to both of them, and they, and Ben and Ashley and Isaiah and Cherith both got their support in a decent time. Took Isaiah and Cherith a little longer because of the
Right.
COVID thing. But until Joyce and I went to Madagascar, and hearing him talk and telling me, Dad, he said they went to Albertville, France, beautiful,
Right.
beautiful in the Alps to learn French because French is the government language. Malagasy is the people language.
Right.
So he had to learn both. And just as an aside, in case anybody's listening that's curious, he had some missionaries who were there tell him, don't waste your time with French. Malagasy is the English, the people language.
Right.
But I don't know if somebody in Oklahoma or what told him, no, you need to learn French. It's the business, the government language. And so he did, which meant learning 2 languages. And those missionaries who were there, they all ended up, many of them, coming to him, hey, could you help me with this in French?
Right.
So if there's a missionary candidate listening, language, that's key, that. So they left Albertville with a 2-year-old and a newborn. both girls, and of course his wife. And you flew into Madagascar.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably flown into other places. The only lights at night, if you're flying it at night, the only lights
Is the airport.
is the airport.
Yes, sir.
And they're coming in. Everything's dark. Just the lights at the airport. They're circling to land. And he's looking out the window and fear. Just, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done bringing a wife and 2 kids here? What in the world have I done?
Mm.
And for a missionary to experience that, and yet the volition to press on.
Right.
We're going to land. We're going to get in the house. We're going to get some groceries. We're going to figure this out. You know, brother, I don't know. Wow. And I'm not just saying Ben. Anybody that does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to go visit there, and you know, in so many of these places, the American is the key to money.
Right.
So a lot of converts,
Mm-hmm.
just you're their ticket to America.
Right.
So I go and preach. You know, I go over there. We visit him. It's like an eye opener. Wow, this is a real weird place. And, there are about 24 people in the church at that point in time, and on my second trip back, none of those people were there.
Mm.
They were all. He's an American. He's got money.
Right.
And then to go back and I won this guy. I played basketball with this man and got to win him to the Lord. And this is a fisherman that I was introduced to, and I got to win him to the Lord. And now you start meeting these people that had gotten saved,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, were coming to the church, and just to see the smiles on their faces, and to, you know, and then you're looking here, and it's your kid standing in the pulpit. And I have 6. I don't love my missionary kids any bit more than I love the other 4. But I don't know. That's an accomplishment that I don't know, man. I just, and it's not. And I say it's not just Ben. You take anybody. I mean, for the Stensis boys to go to Uganda and do what they've, you know, do with Bob Mack and
Mm-hmm.
Ivory Coast, and I'm leaving some guys out. You know, shouldn't mention names, I guess, but I just high regard. I don't know. I think maybe you don't have that overwhelming high regard until it's yours.
Right.
And then you appreciate what the Macs and the Stensises and the boards in Cambodia and all those guys have done, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to go into a country like that. And so I think having a missionary's son has raised my regard for all missionaries.
Right.
Just because you're that close to everything that it takes to get something going, to deal with the homesickness. Oh man, Skype in those days when he first went, that's all we had.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, you know, so we Skype, and all the other kids are there on our end, and
Right.
you know, all everybody did was cry. it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And to see and know, you know, they won't look at it as sacrifice, but to see what they go through being separated from family,
Right.
and you know, spend 4 hours standing in line to pay the electric bill and be 3 people from the front, only to have them pull the shade and say, come back tomorrow.
Right.
It's just everything that we do at the snap of a finger
Mm-hmm.
it's multiplied. There's layers and layers of things that they have to go through that we just don't have to here.
Right.
So I guess just being that close to it, you know, raised my level of appreciation for all the missionaries.
Yes, sir.
Go, and even in first world countries, there's still stuff to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and I think learning a little bit, and I have to be careful because I don't want to make it sound like, maybe Ben supporting churches and might be listening that Ben complains. He doesn't complain, but he's my son. We talk. And we share it, we share each other's hearts. And, he won't use names, but I got an email from a pastor that, or assistant pastor, or a layman even, that's over the missions. It comes in on Monday morning, and we need this by tomorrow night, and tomorrow night, Ben's already 8 or 9 hours ahead of that.
Right.
And he needs it by their time tomorrow night. And it's already almost, and his power's off, or power goes off. There was, just recently, they were without water in that part of Antananarivo for a whole month.
Yep. And they had it on 55-gallon drums they had on carts. They just pushed it around.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I've watched, I get videos of them, the church member, the men mixing mortar. And I know it comes from Africa too, making the bricks by hand, it just, and now you got to stop, and whatever you're doing, try to answer this pastor's email in 3 hours. And you got a sick kid. I don't think sometimes on this end,
Right.
I'm not chiding pastors, I love pastors, but sometimes on this end we don't think all that through. And sometimes it's just simply a lack of knowledge, what it's like, what life is really like over there.
Right.
We send them some money, put them on the, go preach the gospel, and that's what they do. They get up in the morning, they preach the gospel, and that's not all, they live there.
Right.
So, but that's really, it's given me a high regard for, and even more so, especially the ones that we send out of our church to sit down and talk with them and say, look, you understand what this involves? You need to count the cost. Like the Lord said, he that sitteth down, you don't sit down and count the cost. This is a commitment that requires, it requires some real dedication and being able to handle setbacks. We have family leave the church here. We handle setbacks here, but over there, those places, there's not only those type setbacks, but there's language setbacks and, I don't know, just cultural setbacks. It just, you think you're making progress, and then you learn now I'm a long ways away.
Right.
It takes, what did Brother Vineyard say? Some Velcro on a man's bottom. A missionary needs some Velcro on his bottom to go and stick.
It can take a man from the Northeast or Midwest a good 3 or 4 years and going to the Southeast to learn what bless your heart means. And just imagine that times 20 or 30 going to a different country and trying to understand.
Can you carry me over here? Well, carry you. I mostly carry you. No, drive me. But that's how we talk in Georgia, right? Can you carry me? So,
Right.
Yeah, it's just, and the mistakes that they make, and, humiliating when they start to give the gospel or they start to preach. And that's a minor thing. But, I don't know, Ashley goes to the hospital, cockroaches everywhere. It just, and I hope that, I wish, I'm not speaking across the board. I'm not painting with a broad brush. Don't want to do that. But when young pastors assume leadership of a church, and check on your missionaries. Who are you supporting, right? Get to know them. But guard your attitude. These are not over there because they couldn't do anything here.
Right.
If they do that over there, what could they do here? But that's not the issue. The issue is where's God put them.
Right.
So it's not like, pastors, evangelists, missionaries.
Right.
And sometimes I think the approach is that way. You got to get back to what I said about what we require out of our missionaries is what we require out of our Sunday school teachers. I'm not going to, here I go down a rabbit trail on a rant, but I think sometimes pastors require more out of their missionaries than they do their own staff. He's a person. His wife is a person. His kids are people. They're family. He's not some third-rate Christian who couldn't do anything here, so let's ship him off to
Right. They're spiritual day laborers.
Spain. Let's ship him off to, Bolivia. No. These are some of God's choicest servants. I mean, man.
Yes, sir.
And, you look at what the old missionaries in the old days did. I mean, mom and dad put them on the boat and, maybe you wouldn't hear from them for what, 6 weeks, 8 weeks,
Right.
So, yeah, I think having a missionary out of your family, and we never planned on that. I did not call Ben or Cherith. Cherith felt, she was open, she was surrendered to whatever the husband's call was.
Right.
And she knew when she began to date Isaiah that he was called to the mission field. And so she was submitted to that. So I think having your own flesh and blood go, it colors your perspective. It really does.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully enhances it.
And we've had, I had the privilege to see the work that God has done there in Madagascar, in Faith Baptist Church there in Antananarivo. I got the opportunity to go there last year, and then we were privileged to be able to partner together with your son Ben to help the first 3 national church planners he's turned out. And obviously as a ministry, that's what we do. We work through American missionaries by supporting the national church planners that they've trained, and we provide to the churches here in the United States that support us both the peace of mind of knowing that somebody has vetted this guy and that somebody is maintaining accountability, but someone is also allowing him to be more impactful in the ministry God has called him to do. I just wondered if you could give any perspective that you have to the if you will, the ledger of working with national church planners, some of the benefits you see from that, some of the pitfalls that might inherently be there, and what an organization like Global Baptist Church Planners would be able to provide that you see as beneficial to a pastor here in the United States.
Okay. Well, I mean, it doesn't take much thought to realize that, and especially in continents like Africa, maybe some other specific countries, it doesn't take much. Boom.
Right.
Your visa is revoked or you're not issued, you're out of the country. I mean, even when Isaiah and Cherith went to Panama, they had to leave like every 90 days.
Right.
And go somewhere for 2 days and come back in and
reset the visa.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, you know all that. So if a pastor doesn't see the value of a national pastor, I don't know. I don't. To me, that's an obvious. That's a no-brainer. That now, I appreciate, like you said, the accountability part. Using the American missionary as the accountability.
Right.
I think that's very wise. But let's go back. Bible missions is planting churches, right? And if that missionary has to come off the field, they've come off the field for health reasons. They've come off the field for financial reasons, and unfortunately for moral reasons. You know that.
Right.
And then sometimes it's governmental, right? You're no longer. It's like Madagascar could revoke Yank Ben's NGO, and they're done. They're in the country with it because of an NGO.
Right.
So reaching that man, and that's where, again, my eyes were enlightened by having a missionary son and realizing how much time he has invested in institute and training men. And when he talked about it at the beginning, I kind of questioned him, Ben, are you sure you want to get into that as much time as this is going to require?
Right.
And he said, Dad, if something happens here, I'm gone. And, yeah, you're right. So training those men and the investment in them and now the churches that have been started. And, I think it's, you don't go there to start an American church.
Right.
The people of Madagascar need Malagasy churches, doctrinally sound. The Bible works across the board.
Yes, sir.
So Bible truth, Bible principles, Baptist distinctives in Malagasy culture, in Korean culture, wherever they are, Australian culture. The best guy to do that, in the end, is the Aussie. I went to preach in Australia way back in 2002 with Jim Chamberlain, and I'm telling you, Brother Reed, we were the featured speakers from America that were there.
Right.
But man, those guys preached. Those Aussie men, they preached. I mean,
And they sound cool doing it.
yeah, and you learn things. You learn, what flat out like a lizard drinking means. What do you say?
Can we talk about that in church?
Well, where we would say dog tired, they say flat out like a lizard drinking. Yes.
Right.
But listen to those Aussie men preach. I said in one of my messages, I think the last one in that conference, I said, why do you need us? I mean, you don't need us, American preachers, man, you guys. But they were all products. Many of them were products of American missionaries. So, what's great now is, some of these American missionaries God has used, and like the Rick Martins and the others, the Kevin Wynns, and they've reached people and trained people, and now they're sending people to, other countries in the world. And but so I get it. I think the national pastor, and I think the national pastor, and I think that the scriptures in their language.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you mentioned in private conversation about the church here being involved with other churches in Illinois about getting some churches off the ground, and Illinois, you know our politics, people flee Illinois like rats off of a sinking ship.
Right.
The population of our area has declined since I've come, the three-city area here. We've lost congressional seats. It's like New York and California. What's going to turn that around? Churches.
Yes, sir.
Churches. We have people here who were staunch liberal Democrats before they got saved. And now their whole political viewpoint is more biblical.
Right.
Okay? Biblical worldview. And so what's going to change Illinois? Churches. And small towns, large towns, churches. So we've been involved in, I lose count of how many are started and functioning. Okay? And now Naperville, hopefully this year.
Yes, sir.
And so if that's what we heartily believe about our own country, and we don't, we put American men in those churches, right? Then won't that model work in Bulgaria? Won't it work in Bolivia? Won't it work in Madagascar and South Africa? And that model,
Right.
the national man, with hopefully a Bible in their language.
Committing the Word of God to faithful men.
Who
worked
teach
for a
others
long
also.
time.
And
Right.
they just, on and on and on.
Yes, sir. Well, it's been wonderful to talk with you a little bit. I got one more question, and we'll wrap up this conversation. A little bit of a two-parter, if you will. First of all, what does give you hope or optimism about the future of the work of God through missionaries, church planters, United States, around the world? And then if you could say a word directly to either young men considering missions or ministry, or even pastors who are in the thick of it right now, missionaries in the thick of it right now, if you want to say a word at all to anyone in that area, whatever you'd like to.
Sure. First part of the question, what gives me hope is, I know we're not done. God's not, he's not shuttered the door, the windows. Just little text in the Bible, like we observed the Lord's Supper here last Sunday night, and this do in remembrance of me till I come.
Yes, sir.
Well, who was the ordinance left to? It was left to the church. So if there's going to be people observing the Lord's Supper till he comes, in my simple math or whatever, that kind of means that, there's going to be churches around till Jesus comes. So, hey, I think there's a danger. Now, can we kind of segue into the second part of the question? There's a danger in being result-oriented instead of just obedience-oriented. And I'm going to say something that probably some people won't agree with, but I don't believe things are the same everywhere. I don't believe, what I mean that, what I'm talking about I think things are different. Not work-wise, but I believe the main harvest of the world right now is in the brown-skinned people, brown and black-skinned people. I believe, you mentioned France, the whole European continent.
Right.
Wow.
The missionaries who are there are seeing refugees.
Refugees,
for the most part.
Absolutely. Yep. Immigrants. Mm-hmm. Which is great.
Right.
It's great.
Yes, sir.
Great. Hey, if that's the last people group that maybe we're on the cusp of the Lord's return, getting the gospel to the brown-skinned, black-skinned people of the world. But and I'm not saying it takes any less work in Mexico or any less preparation or any less zeal. I just think, there's a difference in the response that you're likely to get from people in Mexico or other places than you might get in Switzerland.
Right.
Or Sweden or in those Scandinavian countries. But if God's called you there, I've got some missionaries that we support now in Iceland. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to see, number-wise, at the beginning at least, the results that some of these other guys are seeing.
Right.
But, so know where God called you and be content with that.
Yes, sir.
Content in the fact that, hey, you know what? I'm going to have to work here. How about those missionaries who went over and labored for 5 years and so forth, till they had a convert, Mm-hmm. I mean, Adoniram Judson, how long he went, I can't remember. More recent than that, Ron Bragg, who went to, I can't remember where he was. Senegal, West Africa, Muslim. 5 mosques within 2 or 3 miles of us where he's trying to start his church, and
right.
5 years before he has a convert. See a failure? David Eden in Niger, where the nomadic people come through the Sahara Desert. Vineyard had him at the church. Been there like 30 years, maybe had, handful of converts. See a failure? That's where God put him. He stayed. He got the gospel out. People heard. Some responded, not many. Paul went to Athens. He didn't have much fruit there. Mm-hmm. He went to Corinth, and God gave him great ministry there. So I just, I think we need, even here in the States, I think we need to understand the times in which we serve. And there are windows. I think, obviously the assassination of Charlie Kirk kind of woke people up a little bit to the gospel. I think churches saw that. 9/11 brought a...
Right.
But then it seems like things kind of just settle back down again, and and you got to go mine them out, like knocking doors, and it just takes work. And
they're still out there.
Yeah, know the times in which you're living, and hey, just obey God and be prepared to do it for a lifetime.
Yes, sir.
But hey, no, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. Just had a man baptized Sunday, and I know other churches do too, and it's not over.
Amen.
Yep. Still people to reach.
Yes, sir. It's been wonderful to be able to sit down and talk with you for a little bit today. Thank you so much for the perspective and wisdom you brought to the conversation, and for giving me a little bit of your time today. I'm so thankful.
No, you're fine. It's good. It's good to be. Appreciate you and your dad. And what I say, I appreciate Global. I appreciate the work you're doing. I think you're facilitating the transfer, of funds to help get to these national men, but not just throwing money at people that
right.
you never talk to, you never see, you never get a report from.
Who was it? Was it Gaius that brought the money from the collections of the churches over to the Apostle Paul? Was that?
I don't know if it was him. Might have been. That's a good. It was. I know he talked about the brother.
Right.
And that could have been Gaius. Yeah,
Okay.
Paul loved, actually John wrote to Gaius, so I don't know if that was Gaius or not. Might have been somebody else.
I try not to name specific names because I'm always wrong, but I
Hey,
know
you may
there
not-
was
Yeah,
there was a brother.
But there was a brother, and that's how
right.
Paul referred to him, as the brother who traveled
Right.
to make sure that things were honest in the sight of God and man. And I appreciate that about Global, and remember the time when it came to your dad, and I thought, perfect, great place for it, you know, and your dad's been faithful, and I'm sure you've been a big help to him. I know you have. I'm not just saying words now, because to pastor a church and do what you do, you know. So I appreciate Global. I appreciate, you know, the investment the little part we can have in you know, working through you folks, with you folks, to get the gospel around the world, national men, national Bibles. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
That's
Same
it.
message.
Yep.
Same message, same spirit.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you for all the help you've been over the years. Wonderful to talk to you today.
You too, bud.
What you have heard is the perspective of a man that has been informed by having skin in the game. Whether it was the years he spent traveling, preaching the gospel across the United States and the wider world, or whether it is having two of his own children, serving in places such as Madagascar and Panama, Pastor Angel has lived what he has preached, and has passed that vision along to those coming after him. I trust that you will take what he said to heart, and I trust that it will inform how you pray for missionaries, how you support those who have answered the call to go and carry the gospel to a distant land. Each of us have a part to play within the commission to reach the world. This has been Austin Reed. The fields are white unto harvest. Let's get to work.